Seches Megillah Daf Gimel can be divided into two halves. The first half is a list of three statements made by Rabbi Yirmiyah or possibly Rabbi Chia bar Abba. Having mentioned one thing at the end of the last daf about Rabbi Yirmiyah or possibly Rabbi Chia bar Abba, the Gemara now lists three more things. The Gemara will discuss them, unrelated to Megillah. And the second part of the daf, the Gemara will return to Hilchos Megillah and give the order of priority, which things Megillah takes priority over, Talmud Torah, Avoda. As part of that subject, we'll also discuss the mitzvah of Meis Mitzvah, taking care of the dead. They don't have anybody else to take care of them, what they take priority over. Towards the end of the daf, the Gemara will discuss more of the halachas about a city that has a wall, how you define a walled city according to Hilchos Megillah, and other halachas which are relevant to a walled city. So let's begin the Gemara. The Gemara is listing things which are said by Rabbi Yirmiyah, or possibly Rabbi Chia bar Abba. So the Gemara says the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, which are different when they're at the end of the word, which are Mem, Nun, Tzadi, Pei, and Chaf, all these letters, the open letters, the end of letters, the version that's used at the end of a word, that was established by the Nevi'im. So Gemara asks, how is it possible the Nevi'im are not allowed to change any halachos? It says, Eilah mitzvos, these are the mitzvahs that you have, and you cannot have anybody add or subtract or change any mitzvahs at any point. So the letters are needed for the proper writing of the Torah. How could the Nevi'im come along and change those halachos? Second kasha the Gemara asks is that we have a brisa which Rav Chizda quotes, which says that the mem and the samach in the Aseres HaDibros, which were engraved in the luchos, so the mem and the samach are completely round, and since they're engraved, the middle part has to float in the air. So those stood there floating in the air as if by a miracle. Now, the samach, you understand, that's a complete circle, but the mem is not a complete circle. The only thing that's complete circle about a mem is the ending letter mem. Well, that clearly shows that the ending letter mem existed in the times of Maimon Har Sinai, long before the Nevi'im of later generations came along, so it obviously cannot have been established by them. So the Gemara says that the pshat is as follows: the end letters existed, and the regular letters existed, and we just didn't know which ones were supposed to be the regular ones, and which ones are supposed to be used at the end of the word. And the Nevi'im came along, and they established which one is which. The Gemara says, but we still haven't answered the first kash, how could they do that? Nevi'im are not allowed to change things. The Gemara says, no, it was known at some point. We just forgot, and they came along and established, they reminded us what it was always meant to be, so they weren't changing anything, they were just restoring old knowledge that we have. Okay, next thing said by Rabbi Yirmiyah, or possibly Rabbi Chia bar Abba, and that's about Targum. So he says as follows: the Targum of the Torah was said by Onkelos Hager. Onkelos, which we call Targum Onkelos. Onkelos was a convert. He was Roman who converted, and he said it over as he received it from Rabbi Eliezer and Rav Yeshua. That's Targum on the Torah, on the 5 Chumashim. Targum on Nevi'im, that was said by Yonasan ben Uziel, and that he received from the Nevi'im, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And when he printed that, when he said that over, when he established it, Eretz Yisrael shook for the length of 400 amos by 400 amos, and a voice came out of Shemayim, an echo, and it said, who revealed my secrets to mankind? And Yonasan ben Uziel stood up on his legs, and he said, I am the one who revealed your secrets to mankind, and it's clear before you that I did not do it for my honor, not for the honor of my father's house, I did it for your honor, in order to minimize the amount of arguments that there should be in Klal Yisrael over the correct understanding of the Nevi'im. Next, he wanted to reveal the Targum, the translation of Ksuvim. The Torah was already out, Nevi'im was already out. Ksuvim he wanted to reveal as well. We should have the Targum on Ksuvim, but the Baskal came and said, Dayacha, that's enough. You're not going to reveal the Targum on Ksuvim. What's the reason? Because the Targum on Ksuvim in Sefer Daniel, describing the Nevuahs of the end of the days, if we have that Targum, that'll tell us when Mashiach is going to come, and that is something which has to remain hidden. It cannot be revealed. So now the Gemara has a kasha: is it true to say that Onkelos is the one who revealed Targum on the Torah? We have a clear source that says that it existed long before Onkelos. What's that? It's a statement of Rav Ika bar Rav, the name of Rav Chananel, says the name of Rav, explaining a pasuk which says as follows: Vayikru b'Sefer Torah. So it's not clear if this is from Sefer Nehemiah, which is where we have it, or Rashi says it's in Ezra. The Gilyon Shas speaks about that. So either way, it was long before the time of Onkelos Hager, and it says as follows: Vayikru b'Sefer Torah Selakim Meforosh v'Som Seichel v'Yavinu b'Mikra. What does this mean? So let's break it down phrase by phrase. Vayikru b'Sefer Torah Selakim. They read from the book of the Torah of Hashem. That refers to reading Psukim, understanding the meaning of the words of the Psukim itself. Meforosh, that refers to the Targum, and that's going to be our proof here. It says clearly that Targum was learned in the times of Ezra and Nehemiah. V'Som Seichel, the next phrase in the pasuk, that refers to the psukim where they start and where they stop. V'yavinu b'mikra, that refers to the trup, the cantillation, marks what the tune is correctly, or possibly what the Masoros is, that is where you have letters missing or added in, which is a Masorah that we have from generation to generations how to properly spell the words. So anyway, so here you clearly have that the Targum existed before Unclus, so how could we say that Unclus is the one who created? So the Gemara says it was forgotten, and Unclus was the one who returned it. Now the Gemara wants to know, why is it that only when the Targum of Nevi'im was revealed that the earth shook, that Eretz Yisrael shook 400 amas and 400 amas, why not when the Targum of the Torah was revealed? So Gemara says the Targum of the Torah doesn't reveal any secrets, it just translates the words, gives a little explanation, but it doesn't reveal secrets. Targum of Nevi'im adds a lot of explanation and reveals a lot. We already see that. So the Gemara quotes a pasuk that's explained well by the Targum itself. It says as follows. It's a pasuk in Zechariah. It says, "B'yamahu yigdal mispeid b'Yerushalayim." On that day there was great mourning in Yerushalayim. Ki mispeid Hadad Rimon bebikas Megiddo. Like the morning of Hadad Rimon, his name of a king, in the valley of Megiddo. So the Gemara's problem here is that there is no recorded mourning for Hadad Rimon in any valley called Megiddo. So the Gemara says that the Targum there explains it. Without the Targum, we wouldn't understand it. He explains that there's two different mournings being referred to over here. One is that of Hadad Rimon ben Tavrimon, but that was not in Megiddo, that was in Ramos Gilad. And it's also referring to a different mourning which took place in Megiddo, and that is the mourning of Yeshaya ben Amon, who was killed by Paroch Hagira. That took place in Megiddo. Okay, that's the second thing. Now the Gemara goes on to the third thing, which was said by Rav Yirmiyah Pasuk B'Chia Bar Abba, and that is explaining a pasuk in Daniel. Says Daniel Varisi Ani Daniel Avadi Samar V'Anashim Asher Hayu Imi Lo Yirau Samar Avachad Gedaylo Nafla Aleihem V'Yivruchu B'Hichavei. So Daniel says, I saw this vision, describing a vision that he saw. The people that were with me did not see it, but they were afraid anyway, and therefore they ran away and hid. Says the Gemara, what is this referring to? Rav Yirmiyah Pasuk B'Chia Bar Abba says that who are these people that were with him? Those are the three Nevi'im, Zechariah, Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Says the Gemara, they were greater than him in one respect, and Daniel was greater than them in one respect. They are greater than him because they were Nevi'im, they were prophets sent to give Nevuah to Klal Yisrael. He was not. He was greater though because he was able to see this vision that he saw, and none of them were able to see this vision. The Gemara says if they didn't see the vision, what were they afraid of? Why did they run away? The Gemara says they didn't see, but their mazel saw it. Each person has a malach which represents him in Shemayim, and that malach was able to see this vision, and because that malach saw it, the fear, the sense of trembling went down to them themselves. Says the Gemara, somebody who has a sudden fear that he cannot explain is because his mazel sees something, he sees some spiritual force approaching him. What should he do? He should say Kriya Shema. If he's in a place that he can't because of the filth there, he should jump away for Amas. And if he still can't do that, then he should say the following formula. He should say, the goats of the slaughterhouse are fatter than I, go after them, leave me alone. The Gemara now returns to the halachas of Megillah. The Gemara says that we have listed, at the end of the last daf, we had a drasha from the phrase ir va'ir and from the phrase medina u'medina. So now the Gemara says, it also says mishpacha u'mishpacha. What is the drasha that we say that the reading of the Megillah was established for mishpacha u'mishpacha? So what does that teach us? So the Gemara says that it teaches us that even Kohanim who are in the middle of the Avodah, Levim who are in the middle of singing Shira, and Yisrael that are in the middle of the service of Ma'amodos, that is the special service that Yisraelim used to do as part of the Karbanos, all these stop doing their Avodah in order to go hear Megillah. Megillah pushes away these three things, and they go and do the Gemara brings a statement of an Amor, of Yehuda Merav, who says this, and a Bryce, which also says this as well, that Levim, Kohanim, Yisraelim all stop their Karbanos service and go hear the Megillah. Says the Gemara in the house of Rebbe, they also learned from this that you should stop learning in order to go hear Megillah. Kavachomer from the Avodah. If you stop the Avodah to go hear Megillah, Kavachomer, you stop doing Talmud Torah in order to go hear the Megillah. The Gemara says, this is interesting. That means you're telling me that the Avodah is stricter, is more important than Talmud Torah. Because you're saying, Kavachomer, if you stop doing the Avodah to hear Megillah, you certainly stop learning. But it's not true. Talmud Torah learning is more important than the Avodah. And the Gemara is going to get into that right now. And the Gemara is going to go to a story about Yehoshua, recorded in the Pesukim, and a drasha on it, which seems to indicate that Talmud Torah is more important than the Avodah, which is contrast to what we're saying here, that Avodah seems to be more important than the Talmud Torah. What's the story with Yeshua? So Gemara quotes the Pesukim. It says that Vayihi behayos Yeshua b'Yericho. Yeshua was in Yericho. Vayisa Einav. He lifted up his eyes. V'yar v'hinei ish omid lenegdo. There was a man standing in front of him. He had a sword drawn in his hand. This was a malach. He said, are you with us? Are you against us? I am a malach of Hashem. Ata vasi, and I came because of this. What is your message to me? So the Gemara first of all interrupts here and says, why did he greet and give shalom to this person? Don't we know you're not allowed to greet anybody at night with shalom, because he could be a shade. You'll be giving shalom, the name of Hashem, giving power to the shadim. Someone says he knew he wasn't a shade because he said the Shem Hashem, and the shade doesn't quote the, because he said he's a Sar Tzava, and used the Shem Hashem, and a shade would not lie. So a shade might lie, but it wouldn't use the Shem Hashem. So since he said Sar Tzava Hashem, he couldn't possibly be lying, and therefore it couldn't be a shade, because he said he's a Malch, so he must be a Malch. So there's no problem. But anyway, the message of the Malch to him was that you did two things wrong. And he said, first of all, you did not bring the Karban Tamid yesterday evening. As night fell, you were supposed to bring the Karban Tamid, and you didn't do that. And also, you were Mevatel Talmud Torah. Kal Yisrael at night, after the fighting ended, there was no fighting at night, they didn't learn. So Yeshua had asked him which one is more important that you're coming for now. And on that we have the phrase, Atavasi, I'm coming about now. The fact you're not learning right now. So Gemara says, what was the response to that? Vayolin, so that's a pasuk later, where it says, Yeshalchem Yeshua vayelchu el hamara, vayeshu bein beso vein ha'ai, miyam la'ai vayolin Yeshua b'laylahu b'seicha'am. Yeshua slept that night amongst the people. Says the pasuk, says the Gemara, that's not meant to mean that he slept balayla hahu b'socham. He didn't sleep, but he slept in umko shel halacha. He slept in the world of Torah. He spent the time learning there. It's not referring to then, it's referring to now. And he went right away to learn, and he established a beis medrash in order to fix the sin that the Malach was referring to that they hadn't learned. So you see here clearly, because the Malach came and he said, I'm talking to you about now, that the more important issue was the fact that they weren't learning now. It was more important the fact that they had not brought the Karban Talmud. So you see that that Talmud Torah is more important than the Karban. So how could we say otherwise? So the Gemara says, so that's no problem. Here we're talking about the learning of the entire Klal Yisrael. The entire Klal Yisrael had not learned. That is Talmud Torah de Rabbim. That is more important than Karbanos. However, Rebbe was talking about Mikra Megillah. He wanted to know which was more important. He learned that his Talmud Torah of his Yechidim was less important than the Karban, and therefore if he could be Mevatel the Karbanos, he could certainly be Mevatel the Talmud Torah of Yechidim, of individuals. So Gemara asks, but we have a source that shows pretty clearly that the Talmud Torah of Yechidim is also extremely important, and it's a Mishnah discussing the halachos of mourning for the dead on a holiday. And the Mishnah says as follows, Gemara quotes it in full: on a Yom Tov, women are allowed to do ma'anos, allowed to do a spadim, but they're not allowed to beat their chests as a sign of mourning. And Rabbi Shmuel says if they're next to the bed, if they're near the biur itself, they are allowed to. Rosh Chodesh Chanukah Purim, they can do ma'anos. They could do a spadim. They could also do metapchos, beating their chest, but they can't do mekonanos, which is a different form of hispadim, where they have one who speaks and all the other ones answer after her. So these are the three levels: ma'anos, metapchos, mekonanos, and in decreasing order, which ones you're allowed to do. However, Rabbi Bar Huna quoted on that. He said that if it's a Talmud Chacham who died, none of these halachas apply. You're allowed to do a spadim for all of them. So you see that the honor of a Talmud Chacham is still great. It pushes away these halachos. That will be clear that even a single individual Talmud Torah should be important. Somewhere says that's talking about Kavod HaTorah. Kavod HaTorah is different than Limud HaTorah. Kavod HaTorah is definitely very important, even for the Yachid. Limud HaTorah, however, of the Yachid is less than the Avoda of the Tzibor. Okay, now the Gemara goes into a list of items that we will hold against each other and see which one is more important. And we'll list the ones we know and the ones which we do not know. So Rava says if you have avoda against Mikra Megillah, so we've already established that Mikra Megillah is more important, you stop doing the avoda. We learned that out of this drasha. Now, if you have Mikra Megillah or Talmud Torah, which one should you do? So we learned that already. Rebbe made that Kal V'chomer. You should stop learning Torah and go do Mikra Megillah. Now, what about Meis Mitzvah? How does Meis Mitzvah appear? How does that fit into this? So we know that if you have Torah and Meis Mitzvah, then you should stop learning Torah and go take care of the Meis Mitzvah. We learned the Brisa that says Mevatel Talmud Torah in order to take care of a Meis or for Achnasas Kala. Now, if you have an Avoda and Meis Mitzvah, what should you do there? There you stop doing the Avoda and you take care of the Meis Mitzvah. Where do we learn that? That's from a pasuk about a Nazir. In the pasuk of the Nazir, we have extra phrases. It says he should not be a matame to anybody, and then it specifically lists he should not be a matame to his father, to his mother, to his sister, to his brother, or to his sister. We learn out of that all the various levels of kedusha are not matame to these relatives, but for a meis mitzvah they are metame, and that's the four different phrases here: mother, father, brother, sister, are all to teach me different levels of kedusha that are supposed to be metame to a mitzvah. So the first one is to teach me that a kohen. Second one is that a kazer who is a nazir, a kohen who is a nazir. The third one is a kohen gadol who's a nazir, and the last one is to teach me that all kinds of other things that you're in the middle of, you should stop doing in order to take care of a meis mitzvah. Even if you're in the middle of the avoda itself, you stop doing that in order to take care of the meis mitzvah. From that we have a brisa that says, you learn out of the last word, which is achoso, his sister should not be metame to his sister when he's a regular nazir, but he should be metame to a meis mitzvah. Even somebody's on a way to shechtas korban pesach or to do a bris milah for his son, if he hears about a meis mitzvah, he should go take care of this meis mitzvah. That's all that we learn. So anyway, so there we see another clear source that meis mitzvah is more important than the avoda. Question that we're left with is Mikra Megillah and Meis Mitzvah. What is more important than those? Mikra Megillah has defeated all these other things, and Meis Mitzvah has defeated all these other things. What if you have Mikra Megillah, reading the Megillah, or a Meis Mitzvah? Which one should you take care of? Now, the tzad for Mikra Megillah is that it's Persumei Nisa, it's publicizing the nes. Maybe therefore that's more important. The tzad that it should be Meis Mitzvah is because it's covered a brios. Taking care of human needs is considered more important than most other things. The Gemara says we answered and we say meis mitzvah is more important because kvod habrios, taking care of human needs, is so great that it even pushes away mitzvahs in the Torah, specifically as we've seen quoted across Shas this halacha. Okay, the Gemara now shifts gears and it goes into the halachas of what counts as a krach, what counts as an ir, what counts as a kfar. Kfar, we said, is a small village, which has halachas that it's allowed to move from place to place in order to go hear Megillah on the wrong day. Krach and Ir are big cities, except one is considered walled and it would read the Megillah on the 15th of Adar, one is not walled, which would read the Megillah on the 14th of Adar. So Gemara says, how do you define these things? So we'd seen earlier that something which is samach and nira, something which is close to or can see a walled city, has the halacha of the walled city itself. So we can have a list of halachos here. First of all, they are mostly brought by Rabbi Shua ben Levi. So the first one is Rabbi Shua ben Levi says that it's someone who lives in a place where he is close to a walled city or can see a walled city. Either of these is okay, even if you don't have the other ones. So somebody who can see but is not close, or someone who is close and cannot see, still has the halachas of being included in the walled city for the halacha of Mikra Megillah. Now, what's a case where you could have somebody who can see, someone who can see but is not close? That's somebody at the top of a mountain. You can see from very far away. You can see the walled city even though it's far. What's someone who's near but can't see? That's somebody who's in a deep ravine. Even though he's right next door, he still can't see what's right near him because he's at the bottom of this deep valley. Okay. Next, the Gemara says, what is the halacha of a place where they first settled it, they built houses, and only then did they put the wall up around it? Now, specifically, Rav Shua ben Levi is discussing the halachos of a walled city as far as Hilchos Yerusha, and going back on Yovel. Those are different halachos for walled cities and for open areas. So he says that if you have a case like this where they first settled it and then they built a wall, that counts as a kfar, that counts as an open area. And the reason is because the pasuk that describes these halachos says, "V'ish ki yimkar beis moshav ir choma," a man who sells a house that was settled in a walled city. That seems to indicate that the wall was first there and then the house was actually settled afterwards. Not this case where it was first settled and then the wall was created around it. Now, says Rav Shua ben Levi, another halacha, a city has minimally 10 people who learn all day and don't go to work. If they don't have 10 people who are kavua there, who are there all the time in the Beis Medrash, in Kolel does not count as a large city, counts as a little village. And it says Gemara was a chiddush of that. We learned that in a Mishnah that says, what is the definition of a large city? Any place that has 10 people that learn all day. Less than that is considered to be a village. So the Gemara says, no, Rabbi Shua ben Levi is added, even though it's a very large city that always has people that are learning because the people constantly passing through. And even if they may not live there, they could come and stop and learn. So there's always going to be at least 10 people that are learning, but not necessarily 10 people that live there. Rabbi Shua ben Levi is saying that doesn't count because you could still have a day where you won't have it. It's got to be 10 people which live there full time, and their only responsibilities are to sit and learn in the Beis Medrash and not otherwise. Next, the Gemara says, what happens if a walled city is destroyed and then rebuilt? So the Gemara says it counts as a walled city still. It does not lose the halacha. So Gemara says, what's a chiddush of that? We have a clear brisa that says, learn out of the pasuk which says Asher lo yichema, spells Asher lo yichema Lamed Vav Aleph. It has a wall and it has no wall at the same time. It's read Lamed Vav, it has a wall, or Lamed Aleph, it does not have a wall. So that it teaches me that if it once had a wall but doesn't have it anymore, it still counts as a walled city as far as these halachos. So then it doesn't have to be that it's rebuilt. Even if it's not rebuilt, it would still keep these halachos. So the Gemara says, no, what we mean when we say that it was destroyed, not that its wall was destroyed, was that it lost the status of a city because it lost its 10 people that are established to learn all day. And then it got them back. That would restore the status of being a walled city for these halachas.